Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 4 of Let's Play the Turing Test, which I guess it's turning into a Let's Play. I don't know, I'm long playing this from my perspective, so these are recorded back to back to back. Last time, ooh, that's kind of snazzy as an effect. Last time, we were talking with Tom, or rather Tom was more talking with us, about the Turing test of like being able to, I want to see if this will kill me. No, but I was concerned about that. Yeah, so he was talking about the Turing test of like, if the computer is programmed in such a way that it could pass the test of having a polite conversation, which is a flawed test to have, because the polite conversation isn't the problem that the computer would have. In terms of communication, a computer would be able to communicate as long as it's programmed in such a way that it's capable of adapting to any given conversation situation. And politeness is sort of indicative of the language you're using. So being polite in English, for example, is not the same as being polite in Chinese. And I'm using this as the example because if you watched the last episode at the same, like, one after another, which most people seem to watch series in a straight line, then you'd realize, like, the example that was being given was, if you're communicating with someone via translating what you're saying without knowing Chinese, but you're translating what you're saying through, yeah, I'll get to that in a second, through a slit in the wall, but you're essentially being fed the translations by someone else, then, you know, the person on the other side assumes that you are speaking Chinese, even though this is obviously false, because you're not actually speaking Chinese, you're just taking a translation. The thing is you've got to, there's a lot of trust involved there. A computer will always trust that the instructions it gets are implicitly true. Therefore, the real Turing test would be duplicity, where it can understand not a falsehood, but a sarcastic falsehood.
It looks abandoned.
It looks like straight out of Alien. Oh wait, was there a... No, that wasn't a window. Can I get... Well, this certainly looks weird. Notice, I do not see the need for so many cameras. Tom's presence everywhere is slightly oppressive. I understand the need for transparency, but why is he in the toilets? This is a very good question. Tom, why are you peeping, Tom? Just because it's part of your name doesn't mean you have to be a dick about it. Ooh, frame rate drops. That's quite a nice approach. Yep, someone has some children. It would be this guy. We can pick up a pencil. We all like, but I don't see it really being that much of a clue. So, is he like me and Dan? So are Chris and Dan twins? Is that his kids, or are those him and his brother as young adults? Ooh, what is this? Some sort of stalactite? Interesting. No, I wanted to turn it on. Can I not? Let me pocket. See, I can't crouch, so I can't see what that is, which is somewhat frustrating. Oh, he's definitely from Canada, or he really likes hockey. And no one who's not from Canada doesn't like hockey. Okay. He was taking Riluzole. I don't. First of all, the glass isn't there, so yay. Secondly, I'm not sure what is this for. Don't know. If there's any sort of, I don't know, medics? People who know drugs. Maybe you can tell me. Yeah, I'm guessing they're his children. No? Okay. Space Canada. Because Space Canada. I know that's supposed to be really heartbreaking and whatnot, but I don't even know the guy. I know he's dead because Tom told me he was dead, or I'm assuming that Tom's not lying. But, like, I've never met the guy, so Ava might be sad about him being dead, but I don't know. Anyway, dear Tom, knowing that you're always watching, I thought I would write you a letter, as you no longer reside in my mind. I've decided to transfer my thoughts to text. I want to do so in a form of a history lesson. A lesson that perhaps you'll find condescending, but it's likely more for my sake than yours. I don't think he quite understands what condescension is. Alan Turing is considered a father of theoretical computer science and artificial intelligence. Kind of. I mean, he is, but it's British history is kind of great when it comes to Turing, considering he was homosexual, and that was kind of a big no-no. He was a major part of winning the war, though. Perhaps a lesser-known part of his life was his contributions to the field of biology. Why do you suppose his interest lay in these two disparate fields? I assume that it was because he believed that the world to be logical and understandable. He was a mathematician. He was also highly autistic, but again, he seemed to believe that the great complexity of the universe could be explained with simple rules. 2 years before his suicide in 1952, Alan Turing developed something called the reaction diffusion system. Inside the academic world, his work is cited more than his work on computers. It can generally be formulated as a one-line equation. Okay, so gamma I by q equals the d vector by the delta v squared q plus the r times the quantity of q, and I think that's a 2 at the end of that, but I'm not sure. I'm no mathematician. However, in plain English, the equation describes things that wish to diffuse, however, also react with each other during this process. I'm sure this sounds strange to you, or at least very tangential to our lives here on Europa. What relevance does it have here? Reaction diffusion systems show how patterns are created. They show how the leopard got its spots, how the zebra got its stripes, but my real interest here is Turing's interest. The nature can be formalized, that we can understand the natural world in mathematical terms. Turing created the test to answer the question, can a machine impersonate a human? The intrigue behind that being, can a human mind be simulated by a machine? Why ask that question? To prove that the human mind is a machine. I'm not sure that is Turing's opinion, however. Concerning consciousness, he states this: According to the most extreme form of this view, the only way by which one could be sure that a machine thinks is to be the machine and feel oneself thinking. One could then describe those feelings to the world, but of course no one would be justified in taking any notice. Likewise, according to this view, the only way to know that a man thinks is to be that particular man. If a human mind exists within the physical world, it obeys the same rules of physics and chemistry as every other thing in the world. Therefore, like all of nature, it is merely reactive. It is curious that nature would create, through the mechanisms of determinism, creatures that believe they have free will. No. Determinism isn't something you can guarantee is a de facto. It's more of a case of I hate the probability term, but it's basically your choice could be anything of an infinite number of probabilities, like any number between 0 and 1. And sort of like the infinite space in between, the infinite floating point in between. And so essentially, if you could roll an infinite number dice, whatever it lands on, whatever it's more probabilistic to, is likely to be your response, but it's not guaranteed to be your response. Therefore, you can predict the unpredictable, but you can't guarantee a 100% result. Thus, it's not deterministic. But conversely, the game got deep. Don't blame me for it. Conversely, I suppose if we conclude that we are all machines, we only come into this conclusion in a predeterminate manner. We cannot claim credit for our discovery, as it is just a product of nature's genius, not our own. Humbling idea, I think, behaviorism. Maybe we are more similar than we think. Sarah. Mechanically we could make brains. That's not a problem. Hell, Intel's doing it at the moment with their neuron chips. We can get the mechanical process. There's a lot of people in biology figuring out the chemical processes, because chemicals bind and segment in various ways that sort of generally follow decent patterns, but again they're prone to quantum behavior. The thing that sort of ends up is everybody on this damn Rilazole. This is interesting. First one that it apparently just comes in free floating pills. What are these? Yeah. There we go. ISA cookbook? Yep. Oh, I've forgotten where I was now. Someone was religious. But yeah, essentially between the chemical factor and between like the material factor, because the material factor is the most deterministic of the situation, whereas the chemical factor isn't. So between the two of those, you're essentially creating so many infinite probabilities of how you're going to go that you can argue it's deterministic when it's not, because you're the one who is influencing the behavior, so you're making the decisions in that respect. A machine, on the other hand, the one thing we can't mimic is this quantum probabilistic behavior, at least not yet. Thus, you can't have thinking machines. You can only have fuzzy logic machines where they have X amount of choices, and then they make the choice they make a randomized choice based on the probability of it. That's sort of using a random seed, which generally is like a time slice, It's, yeah. I like how the really, really sad music's trying to make it sound really, really important. And a lot of the stuff that was written also is very highly philosophical, but it's not very scientific. Let's see, the whole team experienced nausea during a large electrical surge on Europa's atmosphere. I am concerned, and it's not an instance of mass hysteria. Vital signs were affected. It caused a uniform surge in heart rate that was detected on all members of the crew, and I'm reporting it to the ISA. Well, if there was an electrical field powerful enough, it will. If it's like on the same resolution as like the electrical fields that the crew, that people operate at, it can sort of interfere. It's the same basic principle of why you had to turn your mobile phone off in a hospital and on a plane in the like when mobile phones were new. It's because like the signals would overlap and they'd sort of interact with each other. Nowadays they're on completely different wavebands that's like predetermined. I've discovered that the electronic fields disturb our telemetry implants in a way that I didn't expect. I've contacted the ISA. Strangely, Tom is not comfortable with my attempts to disturb the implant. The ISA have reported back informing me that I am not to disturb the implants. They have also encouraged me not to discuss it further with the team. Russian, which I don't understand. I am continuing to investigate. I'm going to assume that Russian probably is like bullshit or something. I have been running some experiments outside of Tom's view. I can tell he knows this. He has been acting differently around me, like an offended child. I feel increasingly nauseous. These implants seem to have neural connectivity. Out-of-body experiences are becoming more and more frequent. Out-of-body experiences? Maybe he's downloaded the crew. And that's a really good point. Like the describing a machine as a child. We could produce an AI today that, assuming that you could throw enough processing power at it, would be able to mimic the behavior of a child. What separates children from adults is what the brain develops during puberty, and it's what like separates chimpanzees, gorillas from sort of like humans in general, is like the prefrontal cortex that we get during puberty, which is why the teenage years and young adult years are so damn important, that people are in well-adjusted, and good atmospheres to healthily grow, allow this part of your brain to develop. Otherwise you're just going to have sort of like a more autistic outlook like children have, and children are typically quite autistic because like they lack that reasoning center. I've established a definite correlation against my knowledge. I have been implanted with a device that affects my mind. I use my opportunities in regular health checkups to investigate the crew. We all have them. Every single one of us is implanted with some mind-altering contraption. Tom has been encouraging the team to worry about my mental health. He requested that I retire away from the crew. Misinformation. I'm guessing that's another Russian swear word. I cannot will myself to investigate this further. I grow tired quickly. I cannot think straight. I am not sure if the implant is affecting my thoughts anymore. I believe it is trying to subdue my mind. I think I'm going to attempt an excision. I am going to remove this implant. I'm typing with my left hand now. The excision went wrong. I've successfully removed the implant. Unfortunately, I lost my hand in the operation. Tom is very angry. The crew refused to talk to me. Apparently I'm a bad influence. Sarah's patched me up. I wonder if the nature of the organism and its disturbance of my DNA caused my awakening from Tom's influence. If so, that would make for some very worrisome revelation, and perhaps this organism is not so friendly. Dan informed me that the ISA have called for my termination. My masochistic experiment proved that I am a danger to the mission. Fortunately, he chose not to lock me in the brig. I'm going to investigate this implant further. I have to hide my work. The team are becoming increasingly aggressive. They seem to be opposed to my work to understand the implant. It doesn't help that Tom is encouraging them to distrust me. And if it's a neurological link, maybe Tom's whispering sweet nothings? I discovered the nature of the implant. It's a complex computer. It interfaces with the human mind directly. It seems to condition the mind through the Pavlovian and instrumental conditioning, eliciting feelings of euphoria when the wearer is obedient and dysphoria when they are disobedient. It has the effect of suppressing the impulses on the frontal lobe, presumably to lower the free will. It seems to interface crudely with the motor neuron cells through the cerebellum. It is my hypothesis that the crew is controlled by this implant, that their strong aversion to helping me, I need a method of suppressing its impact. Perhaps a drug. Rizol? Maybe an antidepressant to minimize the conditioning effect, combined with a strong electromagnetic field. I could use one of those industrial electromagnets from the construction robots. I've managed to get Chris on my side. He has agreed to test some medical procedures with me in private. It will be more difficult one-handed, but I must persevere. I'm hoping to keep this out of the eyes of Tom, though I have a feeling he's still listening. Ah, well, now we know what the Rizol is, and why, when we go into an electromagnetic field, the screen goes all fuzzy. But, yeah, well, there's the paint, there's the Rizol. Yeah, he's not a bad artist. But, again, like, there's nothing, like, I don't see any point. Well, this has a glass case, but it doesn't have the label when I pick it up. It has it now. Ah, it's morphine. So I guess he's the medical technician. Okay. Where were we? So she's got a violin. Motion sickness relief. Interesting. So what is it you found, Sochi? We found an extremophile, an organism that can live within extreme conditions. Well, extremophile means loves extreme conditions. That survives massive doses of radiation. Radiation damages DNA. The extremophile is a virus living inside it. The extremophile scavenges DNA from other organisms, which the virus uses to repair its own DNA. Essentially, they work together to survive in what's called a symbiotic relationship. So what's the implication? What does it do? In some ways, it's an immortal relationship. It doesn't seem to age biologically. Aging and death are ultimately caused by DNA damage. We have the ability to fix our DNA, but the ability is limited. This organism can repair damage caused by massive doses of radiation. If we could harness this power, we could potentially eliminate biological aging. What we know is sentience. So you found something that could make humans immortal? Not exactly. There are many causes of death other than DNA damage. It would not save you from trauma, from brain damage, cardiac arrest, blah 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 blah. But it could potentially cure cancers and many forms of genetic diseases and massively increase life expectancy. He who controls the spice controls the universe. Ah, Molex. Q. Oh, another pad. We've been studying organism 119. Please find attached the scanning electron microscope image, which appears to show pilus formation. We hypothesize that it is a stress response due to high levels of radiation. We plan to infect a human cell with organism 119 to perform irradiation experiments with flow cytometry. Would this be appropriate? Would it be great if we could get the department to look at the SEM image? Kind regards. I mean, it looks okay to me, but I'm not a biologist. It was great to see this image. Wow, yet more complex life on Europa. Dysinoceus radiaurans might be worth looking into if it survives very high levels of radiation here on Earth. Similarly, you should consider looking at Syllabus acidicalarius, Syllopholabus acidical. No, I'm going to try. Produces pili in response to radiation and uses them to transfer DNA. Perhaps your organism uses a similar mechanism? Have you considered that organism 119 is transferring or scavenging DNA as a method of surviving the radiation? As you well know, the terms of radiation Europa receives are around 5.4 I want to say semivolts, but I would assume that's actually radians or something, per day, over 300,000 times the level on Earth. The organism must have evolved such a high resilience to radiation as a necessity of survival. That said, the radiation beneath the Thera molecula is much lower due to the thick ice crust. Radiation experiments with flow cytometry sound like an appropriate course of action. Hi Matthew, we've attached the image confirming that the organism 119 attaches to human cells. We will proceed with the irradiated experiments on these cell lines. We propose naming the organism 119 Europa radiophilus. What do you think? We now have run the irradiation experiments and can confirm that E. radiophilus does indeed seem to confer resistance to radiation. See attached. We assumed survival is due to DNA damage repair. We tagged various DNA repair enzymes with GFP and found the DNA double strand break repair is occurring. See the attached GFP images. Something amiss. We don't know what is performing the repair. The lab doesn't know how Radiophilus, a good name, could repair DNA. Have you considered that another organism might be in a symbiotic relationship with it, perhaps a virus? We ran a PCR on the human cells exposed to Radiophilus to see if there was a virus present. We have discovered an unknown virus which we have named unknown Europavirus, UEV. Gel electrophoresis image has been attached. That's genetic makeup. This is phenomenal. You need to sequence this. We've finished sequencing it. The data has been attached. It's a virus unlike anything we've seen. Maybe we found a cure to senescence, a form of biological immortality. We're running the long-term tests on plants and mice to see the effects. Mice already have a form of it, so they don't have the same problems we do. The plants are clearly exhibiting longer lifespans when exposed to the organism. We don't have the facilities to continue testing though. We are going on to human testing. We're going to use ourselves as a subject. It's the only way to accelerate the process. Okay. Ooh, and she was married. I say was because I'm still fairly sure everyone's dead. But I think that will probably be the end of this episode. I'll catch you guys next time, and this was a pretty long frickin' episode.